You know that feeling when you reach out to someone and they leave your message on seen? That small, quiet sting in your chest that feels ridiculous to admit out loud. But deep down, it hurts more than you'd like to confess. You start to wonder if you did something wrong. Maybe you said too much. Maybe you cared too soon. You replay the last conversation in your head, searching for a reason why they've suddenly gone silent. And somehow, the more you think about it, the smaller you start to feel. It's strange how silence can be louder than words. How absence can take up more space than presence ever did. You scroll through your phone, hoping to see their name pop up. Nothing. You tell yourself it's fine, that you're busy too, that you don't need their attention. But your mind keeps circling back. Because deep down, you don't just want to be heard, you want to be seen. You want to matter to someone who matters to you. And yet, the more you try, the less it seems to work. You text faster, reply quicker, care harder. But the connection keeps slipping away like water through your fingers. They used to laugh at your jokes. Now they barely notice your messages. You used to feel wanted. Now you feel invisible. And that invisibility, it's not just about being ignored by one person. It's a mirror reflecting something deeper. That quiet, desperate need we all carry for acknowledgement, for validation, for proof that we're enough. You tell yourself you shouldn't care so much, that it's not a big deal. But when someone you value starts treating your presence like an option, it hits something ancient inside you, that primal fear of rejection. Humans crave connection. It's wired into our biology. So when someone pulls away, your brain doesn't just see indifference, it feels danger. It triggers the same part of the brain that responds to physical pain. And that's why being ignored doesn't just hurt emotionally, it's a biological ache. You might start overcompensating, trying to be more interesting, more available, more something. You want to prove you're worth their attention, that you're not easy to overlook. But the irony is cruel. The more you chase that recognition, the less they respect it. The more you offer, the less they value it. You start to realize that caring too much in the wrong direction only drains you. It's like shouting into a void, hoping for an echo that never comes. Then, at some point, you hit a wall. You get tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that seeps into your soul. You stop trying to prove your worth to people who clearly don't see it. You stop checking your phone as often. You stop waiting for the response that never arrives. And as strange as it sounds, there's a quiet peace that begins to replace the ache. Because here's the truth. Being ignored isn't always about you. Sometimes it's about timing. Sometimes it's about where their head is. But most of the time, it's about energy. People are drawn to mystery, to balance, to self-assuredness. When you pour all your attention into someone who gives none back, you tip that balance. Your energy feels desperate instead of desirable. And people can sense that, not consciously, but energetically. So, when you finally stop chasing, when you stop forcing a connection that was never mutual, something shifts. You begin to pull your energy inward. You start to remember what it felt like before you needed their validation. You rediscover the version of yourself that didn't wait around for crumbs of attention. And that rediscovery, that slow return to yourself, is powerful. Because the truth is, people don't ignore you because you're not enough. They ignore you because they feel they don't have to earn your attention anymore. When you make yourself too available, too eager, too ready, they stop valuing what you give. But when you stop overextending, when you pull back not to manipulate but to protect your peace, you start to glow differently. Your silence becomes louder than your words ever were. And that's when the paradox begins to reveal itself. The moment you stop caring so much, genuinely stop, people start to notice. They sense your shift, your absence, your calm detachment. But before we get there, before you can fully understand why that happens, you need to know the truth behind this strange human pattern. Because it's not random. It's not cruelty. It's psychology. And it's powerful. It's strange, isn't it? The way people seem to drift away when you care too much, but suddenly become interested again the moment you stop trying. It feels unfair, even manipulative, like a game you never agreed to play. But behind that confusing pattern lies something deeper. A truth about how human psychology works. The truth is, people are not always reacting to you. They're reacting to the energy you give off. And when that energy starts to feel like need, it triggers an instinct to pull away. Humans crave balance. Every relationship, whether romantic, friendly, or professional, is built on a silent, invisible scale of emotional exchange. When one person starts investing more, texting more, caring more, showing up more, the other subconsciously compensates by doing less. It's not always intentional, but it's how our brains maintain emotional equilibrium. Too much effort from one side creates pressure on the other. The dynamic shifts from attraction to obligation, and obligation is never attractive. Think about it this way. When something is scarce, it feels valuable. When it's always available, it becomes background noise. Psychologists call this the scarcity effect, the human tendency to assign higher value to things that are harder to obtain. The moment your attention becomes predictable, people stop noticing its worth. It's not that they don't appreciate you, it's that their brain stops registering your presence as something to pursue. Another layer to this is the reciprocity imbalance. When someone gives too much, emotionally or energetically, it creates an unspoken debt in the other person. They feel the weight of your expectations, even if you never say them out loud. It can make them uncomfortable. So instead of reciprocating, they distance themselves to escape the pressure. Ironically, your kindness and consistency can start to feel suffocating to someone who hasn't earned it. And then there's the concept of familiarity fatigue. When you make yourself too available, you remove all mystery from the equation. The brain's mirror neurons, the part responsible for empathy and emotional resonance, start to desensitize. What once felt exciting or intriguing becomes ordinary. It's like hearing your favorite song too many times until it loses its magic. People don't chase what they can predict. They chase what feels uncertain, slightly out of reach. This doesn't mean you should play games or become cold. It's not about pretending not to care. It's about rebalancing the energy. Attraction, in any form, thrives on polarity. There needs to be a sense of give and take, approach and retreat, effort and space. When you're the only one leaning in, the connection eventually topples over. The moment you start reclaiming your space, that equilibrium begins to restore itself. Let's take a simple example. Imagine two friends. One always initiates conversations, plans hangouts, and checks in constantly. The other starts responding slower, cancelling plans, giving shorter replies. The first friend feels hurt and confused, so they try even harder, and the cycle continues. But when that first friend finally stops initiating, something fascinating happens. The silence creates tension. The other person starts to wonder, why aren't they reaching out anymore? Did something change? That curiosity reignites attention. Not because of manipulation, but because of a shift in perceived value. This same dynamic appears in romantic relationships, friendships, even workplace interactions. The moment you stop overextending, you become unpredictable again. And unpredictability is magnetic. It signals independence, confidence, and emotional security, traits that naturally attract others. But here's the catch. This effect only works when it's genuine. You can't fake indifference. If you pull away while still craving their reaction, your energy will betray you. True detachment isn't about teaching someone a lesson. It's about understanding your own worth and no longer needing validation to feel complete. The energy of someone who is self-assured feels entirely different from someone pretending not to care while secretly waiting for a response. When you understand the psychology, you start to see people's behavior differently. You stop taking it personally. You stop chasing explanations that don't exist. You begin to realize that attraction isn't about chasing someone. It's about embodying the kind of peace that makes others want to be around you. The less you seek attention, the more your presence commands it naturally. And that's where the real shift begins. Because once you stop needing others to validate you, you start showing up differently. Your words carry more weight, your silence feels powerful, and your energy speaks for you. People sense when you're rooted in your own worth, and they respond to it instinctively. So, the next time someone pulls away when you care, remember this. It's not rejection, it's reflection. It's your energy showing you where balance was lost. And when you learn to pull back not from bitterness but from awareness, everything changes. Because detachment isn't about losing people. It's about finding yourself again. And when that happens, something incredible begins to unfold. The moment you truly stop caring, the whole dynamic shifts. The people who once ignored you start noticing your absence. The attention you once begged for begins to find you. But this time, you're no longer chasing it, you're choosing it. At first, it feels uncomfortable. When you stop caring, truly stop, it doesn't happen with fireworks or some grand declaration. It happens quietly. One day, you just don't feel like explaining yourself anymore. You don't feel the urge to check your phone or to wonder what they're thinking about you. The silence that used to feel heavy begins to feel peaceful. And that's the moment everything starts to shift. Not because you stopped loving or stopped feeling, but because you finally stopped chasing. When you stop caring, you take your energy back. All the attention you were pouring into other people begins to return to you. You start noticing things you had ignored before. The music you like, the things that make you laugh, the small rituals that make you feel alive. It's like waking up from a long sleep where you were dreaming someone else's dream. You realize that your worth was never meant to depend on someone's response, someone's approval, or someone's recognition. It was always yours, you just forgot. At first, people don't understand this change. They notice that you're quieter, slower to reply, less emotionally available. Some might even test you. They'll text just to see if you'll still answer immediately. They'll call to check if they still have power over your mood. But when you don't react like you used to, when your calm replaces your anxiety, something powerful happens. They start to feel your absence. It's not your silence that speaks. It's your peace. Because peace is magnetic. It's rare. In a world where everyone is screaming for attention, the person who doesn't need it stands out effortlessly. Your lack of need becomes your greatest strength. People begin to feel drawn to your energy again, not because you've manipulated them, but because you've shifted the balance. You're no longer chasing, you're attracting. You've reclaimed your value by no longer offering it freely to those who didn't appreciate it. And it's not about becoming cold or heartless. It's about emotional maturity. Learning that not every situation deserves your reaction, not every person deserves your explanation, and not every silence needs to be filled. You learn that peace is not found in controlling others' attention, but in mastering your own emotions. You no longer measure your worth through the mirror of someone else's interest. You begin to realize that self-respect feels better than validation ever did. The transformation is slow, but it's real. You notice that the same things that used to bother you now barely register. That person who once made you question yourself, you think of them now, and instead of pain, you feel neutrality. Not hate, not bitterness, just a release. You understand that their behavior was never about you. It was about how much energy you were willing to give away. When you stopped giving it, the illusion of control they had over you dissolved. Then something ironic happens. The same people who once ignored you start to notice your distance. They start asking questions. Are you okay? Why don't you talk like before? You've changed. And you smile, because yes, you have. But not in the way they think. You didn't change to get their attention. You changed because you finally stopped needing it. Your silence is no longer a strategy. It's a sanctuary. People sense it. They can feel when you're detached but at peace, when you've stopped trying to prove your worth. Your presence becomes powerful not because you demand it, but because you no longer depend on anyone's validation to exist. That energy, grounded, calm, self-assured, is what draws people back in. The same people who ignored your messages now overthink their replies. The same ones who kept you waiting now feel the weight of your absence. And here's the beautiful part. You don't even care. You're not cold, you're content. You realize that life feels lighter when you're not carrying the burden of needing to be seen. You stop overanalyzing people's actions and start focusing on your own growth. You start walking differently, talking differently, thinking differently. Because detachment isn't about losing interest. It's about gaining clarity. You begin to understand that true confidence doesn't come from being wanted. It comes from being free. The less you try to prove your worth, the more naturally it shines through. You no longer have to chase validation because you've built something better, self-respect. You stop being the person waiting for others to choose you, because you've already chosen yourself. And as this new energy radiates from you, life begins to reflect it. You attract new people, people who see your calm not as distance, but as depth. People who match your energy instead of draining it. Opportunities flow your way because your mindset has shifted from desperation to abundance. You stop wondering why they ignored you and start asking why you ever needed their attention in the first place. That's the real power of letting go. The moment you stop caring is the moment you stop being controlled. You become untouchable, not because you built walls, but because you found peace within them. You don't chase anymore, you flow. You don't wait for validation, you embody it. And ironically, that's when everything and everyone starts to come back around. But now, you're not waiting for them. You're moving forward. And that's the quiet revenge. Not bitterness, not anger, just freedom. There comes a moment when you finally realize that letting go isn't about giving up. It's about growing up. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop allowing those feelings to control you. It's the point where you stop trying to fix people who were never willing to meet you halfway, where you stop chasing validation from places that never had space for your worth. It's not coldness. It's clarity. And that clarity changes everything. When you detach, you start to see life differently. You no longer react to every silence, every delay, every ignored message. You stop taking things so personally because you understand that people's actions are a reflection of them, not you. You begin to understand that most people's distance isn't about your value. It's about their own confusion, distractions, or inability to reciprocate. That realization frees you. It lifts a weight you didn't even know you were carrying. The power of emotional detachment lies in the peace it brings. You start making decisions from a place of strength, not desperation. You no longer give your energy to situations that drain you. You stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided not to listen. And slowly, you start to notice how much lighter your world feels. You wake up without the urge to check who texted you back. You start to feel comfortable in your own company. You begin to understand that solitude isn't loneliness, it's power. People sense it too. They notice the shift in your energy. You no longer chase, argue, or beg for attention. You respond with calm instead of chaos, silence instead of overreaction. That balance, that quiet confidence, becomes your new language. And it's magnetic, not because you're trying to attract anyone, but because your energy now communicates something rare, peace with yourself. True detachment doesn't make you unkind, it makes you discerning. You start choosing where to give your attention, and that selectiveness raises your value. You stop needing everyone to understand you because you finally understood yourself. You realize that what's meant for you won't require you to lose your peace to keep it. That understanding becomes your anchor, steady, unshakable, and free. And here's the irony. The moment you no longer need anyone to notice you is when they do. When you no longer chase love, it finds you in its purest form. When you stop begging for respect, people begin to offer it willingly. But by then, you don't crave it anymore. You've already built it within. That's the power of emotional detachment. It gives you back everything you once gave away. It teaches you that your value isn't determined by how much someone chooses you, but by how deeply you choose yourself. You stop living for their attention and start living for your peace. And in that peace, you discover something you were searching for all along, freedom, the kind that doesn't need to be noticed to be felt.